feel like I get whiter by the day. Like the lighting's like perfect one day, and then I just started up and I'm like whitewashed out. Hello, everyone, and how are you guys doing? To everyone who's here. It's tangled up in my headset here. Okay. There we go. Get that out of the way. What's up?
Just give me 2 seconds. I'll be right there.
All right. Is that? Okay, it is picking up my voice. All right. So yeah, whenever you're ready.
Promise.
Were you able to find out where we were?
I'm getting it right now. That's why I didn't walk over.
Oh, okay. Back to all the young dudes. See what is going on with Sir Lupin. What happened last time with Lupin? He was selling cigarettes on the playground because he's cool like that now. And then what else? Didn't they catch him doing it? No, they didn't catch him. Ah, it's been so long. Got to brainstorm this for a second.
That's what we get for taking a week off.
Lexatron's just bringing up the story now. That was a couple hours ago. I couldn't have asked for a better reading or discussion. Well, thank you, Brandon. We appreciate it, and we're glad you enjoyed. Brandon says, thank you for the reading.
Of what?
Of Harry Potter.
Oh! You are so welcome, sir. All right, I found it.
All right, cool.
Remember, they went to Hogsmeade.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And they, Remus came to realize that it's called the Shrieking Shack because of him.
He's the Shrieker.
He is. And, he felt really bad about it and self-conscious and stuff.
Oh, yeah, that's right. And James led him away because James is sensitive like that.
Right? James is literally the most intuitive of the three, or of the four. Aww.
Aw.
Well, you could listen to us read A Song of Ice and Fire if you're interested in A Song of Ice and Fire.
Or if Harry Potter is more your thing. All the Young Dudes is a great fan fiction. If you haven't listened to any of the readings yet, it is very good.
And we do have more Harry Potter content in store.
Should be out in a couple weeks.
We're working on it, but we will have more Harry Potter content. So, you know, if that's more of your thing and you don't want to venture into the world of A Song of Ice and Fire, we will have more Harry Potter at some point.
And I'm just going to throw it out there. How Do You Live is a great book if you need something to read on your own.
I know. Give it an hour and we'll be talking about that in depth. I'm so excited about that.
I know, you almost didn't believe me how good it was going to be.
No, I believed you, but I didn't want you to tell me anything, so I was just like, I didn't want you to spoil it for me.
But okay. Yeah, so that was the big thing that happened last time we read about Lupin, is he figured out that he was the Shrieker in the Shrieking Shack.
Yep. And what else happened?
He's the Shrieking.
Lupin has a new teacher, too. We found out about that. The Care of Magical Creatures substitute teacher, Mr. Ferox, Professor Ferox.
Who is devilishly handsome and rugged. In Lupin's eyes.
In Lupin's eyes.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
I know that very well.
Ouch. Okay.
I was talking about my fictional lovers, thank you.
Okay. I felt like that could have been
that was not
a backhanded compliment.
That was not directed at you. That was directed at my fictional lovers.
No, I'm not a 10, but jeez, okay.
Oh, geez, like I'm a 10, okay.
So Lupin, yeah, he has a thing for this beast tamer. Maybe that's it.
He's a beast tamer.
Oh god. Okay. How about we start reading? You just put too much in my mind there.
You want me to just start? I'll just go.
Let's go.
Okay.
Let's just start.
Okay. Alrighty then.
All the young dudes.
All the young dudes. Oh god, I have to read. Okay, are we ready?
Yes, we are.
All right, here we go. Chapter 45. Third year. Noble and most ancient. Cold fire. You've got everything but cold fire. You will be my rest and peace, child. I moved up to take a place near you. So tired. It's the sky that makes you feel tried. It's a trick to make you see wide. It can all but break your heart. Saturday, 15th of September, 1973. Knock knock. Sirius. Oh no, I think we've read this chapter already. This is a chapter where Sirius is in the bathroom.
Oh yeah, we did read
We did read this one. My bad. Sirius has like an episode in the bathroom. Sorry.
Take two.
Take two. Oh yeah, I remember because I got really excited about this chapter. I remember now because I read the title of this chapter and I got really excited. Because one of my favorite characters should be in this chapter.
Snape? Or no, I said it. Well, we'll just read.
Chapter 46. Third year. The Slug Club.
Nice. Go on.
One of my all-time favorites. Love him so much. Monday, 8th of October, 1973. Sirius, you'd better come up with the replacement words. You're the most, verbose, Sirius supplied, yawning. Loquacious? Garrulous? Exactly, Remus smiled. I'll work on figuring out which spell we'll need, and James, you can figure out how we manage to cast it on the whole house. That's going to be really hard, I think. Peter, you better help with that. Hark at Mooney, James laughed, buttering his toast. Giving the orders now. The Marauders are a socialist utopia, Sirius yawned again. We don't have leaders. Enjoying Muggle studies, are you? Remus raised an eyebrow. Sirius lay his head on the dining table, closing his eyes and flipping 2 fingers at Remus. An owl landed on the breakfast table. It was James's. Sirius's owl had been confiscated by his parents so many times that he may as well not have had one at all. Peter typically relied on school owls, and Remus never received any post anyway. What the hell? James opened the letter proffered by the bird with a frown. The Slug Club? Oh, yeah. Sirius opened a sleepy eye. I got one too. Apparently old Sluggy likes students who have a certain star quality. So me, obviously. And I suppose you too. Neither Peter nor Remus had received an invitation, but this was not much of a surprise. Peter was quite good at potions, but lacked aptitude for almost anything else. As for Remus, he tried to fly under the radar where Professor Slughorn was concerned. "We won't go then," James said, folding up his letter decisively. "All for one and one for all, us Marauders." "I don't care," Remus shrugged. "Go if you want to. I bet Lily's going." "Do you?" "Yeah, she really is good at potions, isn't she?" James said, getting that funny look on his face again. "She's really good at everything. Probably the cleverest in the year." "Oi!" Remus and Sirius said in unison. James raised an eyebrow. "Cleverest girl, then." Sirius closed his eyes once more, satisfied, and attempted to doze through the rest of breakfast. Thursday, 11th of October, 1973. The party was held later that week. James, still uneasy about the exclusion of the two lesser Marauders, tried to convince Peter and Remus to don the invisibility cloak and come anyway. Sirius thought this sounded like a good laugh, but Remus personally thought it beneath him. He had no desire to be among the chosen few. In the end, Peter declined too, though he clearly had been on the cusp of agreeing to the ridiculous scheme. Anyway, Thursdays were Remus's favourite day of the school week, specifically Thursdays from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. The slot in his timetable allotted to care of magical creatures.
Oh, I bet there is some care of creatures happening there.
Nah. Their Wednesday lessons were always theory-based, and Remus liked those too. He'd never heard anyone talk about biology like Professor Ferox.
Not gonna say anything.
I don't think anything needs to be said. Hang on. After Neasels, they'd seen Doxies and Krups. This week were Murtlaps. Mary and Marlene squealed at the creatures Ferox presented in a large hutch-like run at the back of the classroom. Remus couldn't blame them. Murtlaps were extremely unappealing. They were rat-like creatures with masses of writhing tentacles sprouting from their backs like maggots.
Ew. Maggoty rat. That is awful.
Yeah, I'm not feeling that either. Not gonna lie. Okay. We can't do Krups and Easels every week. Ferox grinned, gesturing for them all to gather round. Not all the magical creatures we learn about to be cute, but diversity is the spice of life, I hope we don't have to touch them, Marlene whispered, shuddering. Remus didn't mind. They were gross, but he didn't mind gross things. He had a pretty strong stomach. Professor Ferox had already told him so. Last week, when they were watching the Doxy eggs hatch, Remus had beamed with pride all day long. Ferox was looking at Remus now. "Mr. Lupin, I'm sure I can rely on you to tell me the beneficial properties of Murtlap tentacles." Remus tried not to smile too broadly or look too much like a goody-goody. "They're really good for soothing superficial cuts and abrasions," he said promptly. "And if you eat them, they make you impervious to most common hexes." "Excellent! 5 points to Gryffindor." Remus couldn't help smiling a lot. Who cared about the stupid Slug Club? Slughorn was nowhere near as cool as Ferox. Ferox was clever and unpretentious and funny, and did dangerous things. Remus had never given much thought to having a career, but for some weeks now he'd been entertaining the idea that whatever he did when he grew up, he'd like to be just like Professor Ferox. Mind you, he'd have to start eating more or weight training or something, because if Ferox was anything, he was broad. And Remus, though he was inches above the other Marauders now in height, remained eternally weedy. "It's your metabolism," Madame Pomfrey told him when he'd asked one morning after a moon. "You could eat more or rest more, but it might be just one of those things, I'm afraid. I shouldn't worry, dear. You're as healthy as can be expected. That didn't sound at all reassuring, but he accepted it. His father had been thin, too, he was sure. At least he wasn't pudgy like Peter, who still looked like a little boy compared to the rest of them. This fact was made even clearer that evening when Sirius and James stood fully dressed in their formal robes, looking every inch the young lords of the manor, and Peter sat staring at them enviously from his bed, already in his pajamas. "Do you think they'll be dancing?" Sirius asked anxiously, straightening his tie. "Nah," James replied, desperately trying to comb his hair flat. "We'd have been told to bring partners or something." Sirius slumped on the bed. "I hate stuff like this. Moony, you go for me. Bet old Sluggy won't even notice." "Fat chance," Remus snorted from behind his copy of Verbal Assault, Defensive Tongue Twisters. "Slughorn can't even remember my name half the time, and he'll feel a bit short-changed when he's expecting a pure-blood black and gets the half-blood kid he keeps calling Linchpin. Ugh, he's such a slimy old tosser, like an actual slug." Sirius smirked to himself and nudged Remus with his elbow. "Eh? An actual slug, Moony?" Remus smiled back, looking up from his book. "Are you ready, then?" James sighed, tossing away his comb, apparently accepting that his attempt was futile. "I suppose," Sirius grunted, getting up laboriously. "I'll come down with you," Remus said. "Might as well go to the library. Want to come, Pete?" Peter looked at him as if he was insane and shook his head. James, Sirius, and Remus made their way down to the common room where, much to James's glee, Lily was waiting for them in a very pretty turquoise dress. Unfortunately for James, however, as the three marauders approached, it became clear that it was not him she was waiting for. "Remus!" she said, standing up. "You look nice, Evans," James said hopefully. Sirius sighed loudly. "I wanted to speak to Remus," Lily said, ignoring James. "Will you walk with me to the party?" "Not going," Remus shrugged. "Not invited." "Oh!" Lily flushed a bit, looking embarrassed. "Sorry, I just assumed." "What did you want to talk about?" Remus asked impatiently. His book was heavy and the full moon was due on Friday, making him more agitated than usual. Lily eyed James and Sirius, clearly not wanting to say anything in front of them. Remus sighed. "I'm going to the library. If you want to walk that way with me, then fine." It would take Lily out of her way, but Remus decided he didn't care. He pushed through the portrait hole and heard her scamper after him, her patent black party shoes clicking on the flagstones. "What's the book?" Lily panted, struggling to keep up with Remus's long-legged stride. "Nothing," he said deliberately, covering the title with his arm. "Just some research." "It's not something nasty, is it?" Lily asked disapprovingly. "It's not another horrid thing to do to Severus?" "I knew that's what you wanted to talk about." Remus rolled his eyes, still walking. "Well, you have to admit, Sirius did start it that time in Hogsmeade. I mean, he did call "I don't care, Lily," Remus snapped, turning a sharp corner. "He didn't have to be so nasty. Sirius and James were just having a laugh, and Snape had to go and make it personal. "Oh!" Lily stamped her foot. "You're all as bad as each other." "You know he hates people like you, too, don't you?" Remus countered, stopping now that they were outside the library. He rounded on her. "You know that his sort hate our sort." "Our sort?" Lily tutted. "Honestly, this whole blood purity thing is getting ridiculous, and it doesn't excuse—" "He made Marlene cry," Remus persisted. "Mary told us. What do you think he says behind your back?" Lily's cheeks were pink again. Sev would never say anything like that about me. He's my best friend." "Well, good for you, but the rest of us aren't so fortunate," Remus spat. Lily stared at him, blinking for a few moments, stunned into silence. She looked like she might cry, and Remus felt a tiny twinge of guilt. When she spoke again, her voice was meek and small. "What are you going to do to him?" Remus sighed. She might as well know. "Not just him. All of them," he said, lowering his voice and bending down slightly in case they were overheard. "Nothing bad. If he stops calling everyone else names, then nothing at all." She looked at him skeptically. He straightened up. "That's all I'll say. You'll be late for your party, so go on."
Oh, Lily moving in on Remus. She's barking up the wrong tree.
The wrong whomping willow.
Yes.
I'm not done with the chapter yet.
I know, but just had to get it out there.
The wrong whomping willow.
Yes.
Later that evening, Remus thought he'd just about cracked it. He was sitting up in the common room and had made his final notes. Now all he needed was Sirius's list of replacement words and they could begin work on the prank. It was almost 11 o'clock when the portrait hole swung open and Lily Evans marched in with a face like thunder. There were odd silvery marks on her dress that caught the light as she charged in. "What's up, Evans?" Remus asked tentatively, still feeling a bit sorry for being so short with her outside the library. "Ask them!" she hissed, furious. "I'm going for a shower!" He did not wonder who she was referring to, but if he had, it was answered within moments as Sirius and James came through the portrait hole next, laughing hysterically. Remus couldn't help but grin too. Their glee was infectious. "What did you do?" "It was all serious, mate." James clasped his friend on the back, then bowed to him elaborately, fluttering his hand. Sirius did the same back. "Couldn't have done it without you, my dear chap." "Done what?" Remus asked, trying to keep a lid on his irritation as it sprung up out of nowhere. "Slugs," James said. "Slugs! Bloody everywhere! Started with these little jelly slug sweets that were laid out to eat." "Simple enough transfiguration spell," Sirius shrugged with false modesty, throwing himself into an armchair and slinging one leg over the arm. "But then," James sat next to Remus, starry-eyed, "then they started to multiply." "And is this why Evans is pissed off with you?" "Well, did you see the slimy bits on her dress? And, in her hair a bit too, I think. They were really fast-moving slugs. They kind of got everywhere." "No sense of humour, that one," Sirius yawned. "She ought to be thanking us for livening things up a bit." "The nerve of some people," Remus said dryly. "See, you understand, Moony," Sirius grinned. "You'd let us slime you, wouldn't you?" Remus thought it best to ignore that and address James instead. "So, did Slughorn know it was you?" "So did Slughorn know it was you?" "Yeah, it was pretty obvious. We were the only ones not screaming." "Detentions?" 3 weeks. Cauldron scrubbing. That's fine. Helps build up my muscles." James flexed his arms, which, it had to be said, didn't look particularly muscular. "Good news, though," Sirius piped up. "No more parties for us. We're out of the Slug Club." "And into the history books," James crowed, causing all the 3 of them to dissolve into fits of laughter.
Would Remus mind if they slimed him? I don't know.
I think it would depend.
Maybe we never.
I think it would depend on the situation.
You know, I'm not gonna go into this can of worms or can of
slugs.
slugs, as it were. And we didn't get to see Slughorn.
I'm actually particularly upset about that.
And now they're kicked out of the Slug Club, so I mean, maybe the author just realized that it was going to be hard to live up to Slughorn.
Well, there's no reason why Lupin would have been put in the Slug Club.
Well, yeah.
And
there's no value to him, I guess.
Well,
We
and
know Slughorn wants people that he can get his crystallized pineapple from in the future.
right. And James would have been a good choice because his family's wealthy, because they're entrepreneurs. And Sirius, we know that in the 6th book, Sirius mentions, not Sirius, Slughorn mentions that he would have liked to have had the set of brothers.
Yeah.
So,
Not to mention, it's good to be on the black side when Voldemort is coming up to power, I guess. You know, it can be like, yeah, you know, we're cool, right? You gonna...
no, I bet Slughorn is probably pooping his pants.
You think so?
Yeah, because
I mean, yeah, probably, but I mean, that's why he's trying to get in. Like, we're cool, right? We're cool. You put in a good word for me, you know. I'm a pureblood.
we actually don't know that about Slughorn.
We don't.
I'm assuming
I'm making assumptions.
we
And
don't
whether
know.
or not he is, you know, he would probably be like, you know, tell your family I'm pureblood. You don't need proof, just tell them.
Either way, Lily didn't appreciate it.
No, she did not.
And I think Lupin kind of first planted the seed of the conflict that'll erupt later with Snape and Lily later.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Because he just straight up said, like, yo,
What do you think he says behind your back?
his people hate us.
Yeah.
Right? So
What do you mean, our kind?
yeah, there was a little bit of that in there, which
You
I think.
know.
I also think this whole little like prank thing is kind of a great explanation for why Slughorn was never able to collect Sirius.
Yeah, that's
because
true.
in book 6 all we ever get is that, oh, I would have liked to have had the set, but we never get like an explanation of why he
didn't.
never collected Sirius.
Really, when he said that, I assumed Sirius was just like, well, my brother's doing it, so no, I'm not going to do it.
Well, I feel like
I need to
Slughorn
do
would have tried to
everything.
recruit the both of them at the same time.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, I think if Reg was going to join, I think Sirius would see that and say,
Yeah, no,
no.
I'm not about that.
I was
life.
going to, but since my brother's going to join, no. Because I need to do everything that my family does not.
Yeah, that's true.
That's how I kind of saw it. I mean, this
But
is
I also
a
see
good
it as an
interpretation
explanation
it.
for why James wasn't a part of that, because James seems like a person that Slughorn would have wanted to collect.
Mm-hmm.
His family is very wealthy. They've made a big name for themselves in the wizarding community with the Sleek Easy hair potion.
Yeah.
Like, they would be pretty well known and very successful. So it makes sense that Slughorn would want to collect him.
Well, yeah.
But this whole
happened.
prank thing kind of gives a one and done explanation of why neither one of them made it to the Slug Club.
I gotta take this explanation as canon just because it kind of explains James's more. Sirius is easy enough to say, you know.
Yeah.
Reg wanted to do it, so he didn't do it.
Right.
But James is another.
Yeah,
story altogether.
there's just too much unknown about James that this is a perfectly solid explanation.
And Rowling did leave it open, so you could like interpret it your own way, and this is a pretty good one. Unless there's something on Pottermore or some sort of canon. But you okay?
Wrong pipe. Sorry, wrong pipe.
No worries. Unless there is some sort of canon on like Pottermore or something like that that explains it.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, well.
But I also feel like there is a lot of Pottermore that I have not explored. So
gotta get on that.
I guess
if you were on Pottermore, you probably would have noticed the signups for the trivia game show.
You stop that.
Sorry.
Those other contestants are just lucky that I'm not on there because now they have a chance to win.
It's teams. You're playing in like team houses, but
A Slytherin has no real team.
fair enough. So what's the next chapter? Before we get on too much of a tangent, so we have enough time to read another one. Get that coffee out of your lungs.
Just this, you'll understand why in a second.
Okay.
Chapter 47, 3rd year. James Potter and the lumpy elephant dung.
Do they have elephants at Hogwarts? Are there elephants in the Black Forest?
No!
Or not the Black Forest, Forbidden Forest.
No!
Oh, I don't know what's in there.
No!
They have giant spiders. I don't think elephants are too wild of an idea for them to have.
No! It is not the right climate for elephants.
Maybe
Too cold.
mammoth.
Too cold.
Mammoth.
This says elephant, not
Okay.
mammoth. Tuesday, 30th of October, 1973. With Halloween and the traditional Hogwarts feast looming, Remus was keen to have the word-swapping spell perfected in time to have it... In time... This is just a weird sentence. In time in order to have maximum reach. That's awkward. It's fine, Moony. We all know what we're doing, James said, returning from Quidditch practice covered in mud and soaking wet. The evenings were getting darker, and Remus hardly went to watch the team practice anymore, though Sirius and Peter usually did. Mary always went too, to watch Marlene. She was following them everywhere these days. I just think we should test it. Remus bit his lip, watching Sirius cast a drying spell on James. Oh no, Peter said, folding his arms. I won't be your guinea pig this time. Last time I couldn't get rid of that patch of purple hair for weeks. I'd forgotten about that, Sirius said dreamily. That worked really well once we'd figured out the kinks. Do it on him, Peter pointed at Sirius. It's his turn. Don't whinge, Pete, Sirius groaned. He flopped down on his bed. Do it on me, Moony. I'm not a coward. Okay, fine. Remus withdrew his wand. Sirius leapt up. Wait, you want to do it on me now? Well, the sooner the better. What about the counter-jinx? Well, I'm pretty sure I've got that sorted. Remus let a smile creep onto his face. He knew for certain that the counter-jinx worked, but it was too much fun to watch Sirius squirm. Oh, for goodness sake! James sighed, getting out of his Quidditch gear. Do it on me, Lupin, I don't mind. Only I don't want to say any of the words on that awful list of yours. Can you do it for something else? If you like, Remus replied. Yeah, about this list, Moony, Sirius said, picking it up off the bedside table. What? It's really long. Yes, Remus raised an eyebrow. What's your point? They're all insults for non-purebloods, aren't they? Yeah, Sirius said, scratching his chin. Yeah, they are. But, well, I just didn't think there were so many. Never seen them all written out like that. And anyway, where'd you hear all these? Where do you think? Remus met Sirius's eyes deliberately. He'd been waiting for something like this. Don't be a girl about it, Black. It doesn't bother me. Right, James, what word do you want to swap? Evans! Evans, Sirius said suddenly. Sick of hearing that name come out of his mouth. Okay, Remus smiled. Then change it to what? Don't tell me, James said. We'll do it as a blind test so we don't... so we know it definitely works. Pick something Black hasn't come up with yet. Remus nodded, scribbling something onto a piece of parchment, then raised his wand, concentrating. He flicked his wand sharply at James and uttered the incantation. All four of them stood by, silently, watching. Remus said. Do you feel anything? Nope. James looked down at himself as if he expected to see something different. Well, then say it, Sirius urged. Her full name, Remus added. James cleared his throat theatrically, squaring his shoulders. He outstretched one arm and placed a hand on his chest as though he were about to make some sort of grand announcement. Lumpy elephant dung, he proclaimed. Peter burst into a fit of giggles so strong he almost fell off the bed. Sirius whooped with laughter and James turned bright red. I didn't know you were going to pick something like that, he said. That's my future wife. Who's your future wife? Sirius asked quickly. Elephant dung, James replied, then clapped his hands to his mouth. Lupin! You said you didn't mind, Remus replied, businesslike. Now, try saying Evans again, but really, really try to break my spell, okay? Elephant dung, James said promptly. Then with more force. Elephant dung. He screwed up his eyes. Elephant dung. Lumpy elephant dung. He hung his head sadly. Peter could hardly breathe for laughing now, and Sirius had to lean on the bedpost for support. Excellent, Remus smiled. He put down his list. Hey, it's 6 o'clock. Shall we go for dinner? Yeah, just do the counterjinx first, James said. Oh, no. Remus shook his head solemnly. Sorry, Potter, but I want to test the spell thoroughly. We need to be sure it won't wear off too quickly. I'll unjinx you tomorrow morning. What? James roared. Oh, yes! Sirius gasped, wiping tears from his eyes. Sorry, said Remus again. Not sorry at all. Just be glad we didn't pick a common word, I suppose. But what if I run into elephant dung? Oh, I don't think you will. Remus gave a small smile. Hardly any elephants in Scotland. James grimaced. You know what I mean. Lumpy! Lumpy elephant dung! Remus shrugged. Don't yell her name. Come on, I'm starving. James, look who it is. Shut up. James gritted his teeth and looked stonily at his dinner plate. Sirius shook his head disapprovingly, the picture of piety. That's no way to greet. What's her name? I'm not rising to it, you know. I'm stronger than that, James said, viciously cutting into his steak and kidney pie. She's right there, mate, Sirius said, trying to control his smirk. How will she ever notice you if you don't call her? Hi, Evans, Remus said suddenly, waving at the redhead. Want to sit with us? She stopped and looked at them warily. Why? You're a Gryffindor? We're Gryffindors, Sirius said, getting up to give her his seat next to James. We're supposed to sit together. Plus, it'd really bother Potter. Well, in that case... Lily sat down. Sirius pushed Remus up to make room beside him. Lily looked at James curiously, who had turned beetroot red. Why do I bother you, Potter? You don't, he said quickly. They're just being prats. Language, Potter, Sirius said severely, pouring gravy over his mashed potato and peas. That's no way to talk in front of a lady. What's going on? Lily eyed Remus suspiciously. Are you all making fun of me? We're making fun of James, Peter squeaked, sounding as though he was having a hard time containing his excitement. For once he was not the butt of the joke, and it was clearly a dizzying notion. I'm testing a spell on him, Remus said simply. Lily's eyes flashed as she analysed the situation. And what was the spell? Mutatio verbi. Her eyebrows shot up. Is that My God, Remus, which word? Lumpy elephant dung, James said glumly. Peter spat out his pumpkin juice and knocked his fork flying. Lily giggled nervously. What did you say, Potter? Lumpy. James struggled to fight the spell. Lumpy elephant dung. Lumpy. Lumpy, for goodness sake. Lily glared at Sirius. It's my name, isn't it? Don't look at me, Sirius grinned, holding up his hands. It was Mooney's idea. Lily turned to Remus, her frown disappearing. Really, Remus? Yeah, but it wasn't meant to be offensive or anything. That's amazing, she said. Really clever magic. Wait until tomorrow, Peter said, recovering from his hysterics. Sirius kicked him under the table. I'm so sorry, Elephant Dung, James said, looking genuinely forlorn. This time, Lily laughed. Wednesday, 31st of October, 1973. Nothing's happening. Well, they're not supposed to start insulting each other, are they? We have to push them into it. Pete, go and... Oi, blood. Oh, yeah, fair play. Mooney, go up and trip one of them or something. Do it to Snivelus. Or my cousin. Yeah, get Sissy. No, Remus said quietly. Ignoring the fact that he actually had no problem with Narcissa, he didn't want to be so obvious. We'll just wait. Patience, Black, patience. But it might take days. It won't, Mary said stonily. You three must be blind if you haven't seen what's going on round here. That shut them up. Mary was sitting beside Sirius for the second time that week. Remus didn't mind. He liked Mary. She was funny and brusque and bullshy, but unfailingly kind and full of compassion. She was his friend. But, well, she wasn't a marauder, was she? Her presence felt intrusive somehow, didn't quite mesh with their usual back and forth, and she always sat next to Sirius, which meant no one could talk to him without her listening in and batting her eyes. Of course, Remus knew that she fancied him and everything, but he wasn't sure that Sirius knew that yet. Or perhaps that was how you were supposed to act when someone fancied you. What's been going on then? James asked very seriously. Do you get cold stuff, MacDonald? She shrugged, sipping her pumpkin juice. It's been worse this year. You must know, Remus. Remus nodded vaguely, looking away as if he were more interested in watching the Slytherins. It was a Halloween feast and everyone was in high spirits. Professor Flitwick had enchanted glittering black bats to swoop over their heads. Fine silvery cobwebs glistened from the rafters, and the great hall was filled with the autumnal smells of roast pumpkin, wood smoke, and baked apples. So, James continued slowly. Have all the Muggleborns been getting it then? Even Elephant Dung? Oh, for fuck's sake, Remus, please fix me! If you'll do my potions homework, Remus replied, quick as a dart. Fine! Thing. I'll give you my bloody broomstick if you'll just... Finite! Remus pointed his wand at James. James stared at him, looking stunned. He cleared his throat. Lily Evans, he said very clearly, then grinned. What now, Potter? Lily turned around, her conversation with Marlene interrupted. Will you go out with me? No. She turned away again. Cheers, Mooney. Any time. Wait, Sirius said. Wait just a minute. The counter jinx was finite incantatum? Yep. But that's just the standard counter spell. Remus shrugged. I never said it was anything difficult. You purebloods don't have an ounce of common sense between you. Mary squawked with laughter. James choked on his roast potato, and Sirius slapped Remus on the back. I swear, Mooney, when it comes to evil schemes, none of us have got anything on you. Remus flushed with pride and shook him off, returning to his dinner. Look! Peter cried, suddenly pointing a chubby finger in the direction of the Slytherin table. A Hufflepuff second year had wandered too close to Mulciber, who stood up and was looming over them. Yeah, Sirius whispered. Go on, you big troll. The Hufflepuff was trembling so much they sloshed their drink, spilling most of it down their own robes, but also slightly sprinkling the toes of Mulciber's huge black shoes. The snub-nosed Slytherin grabbed the Hufflepuff by the tie. The rest of the Slytherins turned to watch, eagerly. Clean that up, you angelic sweetie pops. Dead silence. The Hufflepuff looked confused and let out a nervous laugh. Mulciber looked stupider than usual. What did you say, Mulciber? Sorry, wrong character, wrong voice. It happens sometimes.
It's okay. Let it slide.
What did you say, Mulciber? Snape asked, staring at him. Angelic sweetie pops! Mulciber roared, red-faced. No! I meant darling sugar plum! No! Goody gumdrops! The entire hall erupted in laughter. Bloody hell, Sirius said under his breath. Mulciber's really got a mouth on him, eh? I didn't think they'd use half of those. Sit down, you idiot. Snape chastised the bully, who had let go of the Hufflepuff's tie and was helplessly spouting cutesy nonsense. That was brilliant, Sirius! Mary hugged him. Remus suddenly lost his appetite. Sirius just tossed his hair gallantly. Just wait, he said. That was just the beginning.
Ooh. Can't wait to see what they have Snape say. What do you think it's gonna be?
Lumpy elephant dung.
Oh, that was so much funnier than I thought it was gonna be.
Right? That was solidly fun.
Right?
It was good.
Lumpy elephant.
God, I'm sorry.
You sucked down that coffee and
Now I
you
have
haven't
issues.
been able to recover.
No.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like this was just a good fun chapter. I mean, not a lot happened, and I think Lumpy Elephant Dung said it the best. You know, that was a really advanced spell that Lupin learned.
Yeah, she was genuinely impressed.
Right?
I also love the cute little thing where James is like, will you go out with me? And she's just like,
Yeah. Oh, but you will.
But she will. But she will.
Wait until James gets his hand on the love potion. Wouldn't that be messed up if we find out that James drugged Lily?
He didn't. Come on.
I know.
That's Voldemort's origin story. Get out of here with that.
I know.
BS.
Be messed up.
It was just cute, though.
It was.
One of the things, actually, I think my favorite thing about the story isn't the relationship between Lupin and Sirius and how that's developing. My favorite part of the story is Lily and James.
Yeah, I think that's doing a great job of showing how it slowly develops and how Lily kind of hated him, but slowly kind of grows to like him. She's slowly starting to like the Marauders one by one.
Right. I think that's my hands down favorite part of the whole story.
Slowly but surely, James is winning her over. I guess kind of like
was this the first chapter?
Slowly won Harry over.
Yeah.
Slowly but surely.
Like this actually mirrors Ginny and Harry very well.
Mm-hmm.
Because from day one, Ginny is just like on
all about
Harry, right? And James from day one is all about Lily.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Lily and James start dating in 6th year.
So we got some time. We're only in 2nd, right? Still?
We're in 3rd year.
Are we in 3rd?
Yeah, because they're taking extra classes.
Oh, well, that's right.
So Lily and James started dating in 6th year.
Mm-hmm.
Harry and Ginny started dating in 6th year. And like Ginny's whole thing, I think, throughout the entire series has always been about Harry being like the end game.
Yeah.
And I think we're seeing kind of like the same thing here with James, where he, even in third year, he's like, no, she's my wife. You don't understand.
Yeah.
That's the woman I'm going to marry right there.
Mm-hmm.
And I just appreciate how this author takes the relationship that James and Lily had in the books and what we understand about their relationship in the books, and is really translating it into the story that, despite the rocky road that they had or whatever else, that like whenever we get to the part where they do get together, that James and Lily were kind of that kind of once in a lifetime love that you have, like, this is the person I want to spend my life with, kind of a thing. And I just like how they're writing it. And I really just love that you get this perspective from Remus that James is just hook, line, and sinker Lily. I can't even look at any other girl. It's Lily. It always has been Lily. It always will be Lily. Like,
Yeah. Do we not? Did James date anyone else?
we don't, from the books, we don't know.
Okay.
Let's just
Couldn't
take a
remember.
pause to say Happy National Mutt Day.
To be
I said on Insta that maybe he would make an appearance, and he did.
He did.
Why don't you let him come up and say hi to everybody?
Well, I didn't know if he wanted to. You want to get up? You want to get up? We gotta stretch it out. It's deciding. Come on. You want to get up? You just want pets? He doesn't want to get up. He just wants pets.
Okay. Well, he was here for like 5 seconds.
He was.
Happy National Mutt Day, Bailey.
To all the best.
To all the
Boys
good
and
boys and
girls.
girls out there.
Especially serious.
Especially serious.
Well, no, I guess he's a pureblood, so he's not a mutt.
We don't know what kind of dog he is other than a big one.
Yeah, but he's pureblood. So
Would he be
even
a purebred?
yeah,
So what would he
purebred
have been?
dog.
He's a big black dog.
He's a I don't know. He kind of looks like in the movies. I'm trying to think of what it looks like. It's oh, what are those? The Alaskan Malamutes.
They're too fluffy and cute.
He's described as a black fluffy dog though. He's like a skinnier dog though. That's the only thing.
He's not like fluffy.
He's like a weird combination of dogs.
That's what I mean. Sirius is a mutt.
I thought he was like fluffy in the movie.
Fluffy looks like
But he was,
Bailey
like-
in the movie. No, Sirius
No,
looks
not
like
fluffy.
more.
I mean, like Sirius was texturally fluffy.
Oh, not like
No, not fluffy. Yeah.
the. Well, we're talking about Harry Potter. You say fluffy. What am I gonna think of?
Well, we were talking about Sirius Black. Oh, Lola will make an appearance though.
Cat tax.
She wants up.
Cat tax. Doda.
Oh, we don't have time for another one though.
No, we don't.
I
We
was
got
just like,
5 minutes until.
Let's read another one, but yeah, 5 minutes before we talk about how do you live.
Very exciting. Maybe you should get the Discord ready and make sure that it works.
Yeah, I probably should do
Before
that, huh?
it's time. I'm just throwing out suggestions. Hello, Beatty. My Godzilla blankie is keeping me very warm, by the way.
Oh, well, glad. There used to be a way.
I thought I saw someone else in the background. Maybe not.
Oh, we got a little hiccup there.
What's the matter?
The stream just kind of buffered for a second.
Oh no! Well, if you're going to take 5 minutes to get the Discord ready, I'm going to take 5 minutes to use the bathroom before we have our discussion. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you have both sets of headphones?
No, it's right over there.
Okay.
If only there was a way to like save my
Settings?
yeah. All right. I think pretty much everything's set. We're just waiting on Noel. Yeah. Well, yeah. Yeah, it's weird. I feel like around this time every night, our internet provider there's issues for like 3 minutes. So to anyone having an issue right now with like stuttering or buffering, it should stop in a couple minutes. This has been like a weekly thing for the past few weeks for some reason.
Sneak over. I'm gonna do a sneak.
Sneak, you're not. Okay. Yes, very sneaky.
I'm trying. Well, because my pajama shorts are so short.
All right.
So, to just continue the topic of conversation. Well, actually, just to. And now for something completely different. Biggs has said that.
Oh, I never changed the graphic. We're not doing the night shift, people.
Wow, way to be professional on BIBLIOBIBULI.
I forgot about that part.
We're not talking about night shift. We finished that. Just roll with it, guys. We're doing a new book today. But oh my god, I'm dying. Oh my god.
Before we hop in there, I know you cough and then Bailey coughs. What's going on here? What do you have?
I don't know.
Should be wearing a mask.
Should I wear a mask? Protect you? But we were having a conversation earlier, and I asked Biggs that if there was a quiz like the Pottermore quiz, but for the houses of A Song of Ice and Fire, I asked him, what house would I belong to in A Song of Ice and Fire? And he, without hesitation, told me that I would be a Lannister.
Just because you are. There's like no other house that really fits you.
And I'm trying to embrace that.
There you go. Who do you think you would be?
Well, I want to
Be honest with yourself.
I want to be a Targaryen.
Well, I said you were a Lannister. Who do you think I would be?
But I think I am a Lannister. In my heart of hearts, I'm just like, yeah, I'm a Lannister. I know I am. I'd be vibing with Cersei and Tyrion and Tywin. I know I would be. I want to be Dany, but really, I'd end up being Cersei.
Keep you away from the wine, I guess.
Or Tywin. Maybe I could end up being a Tywin someday.
Yeah. You work hard and do your best. You too may be Tywin someday.
I could be Tywin someday. I could be Papa Lannister. Or if I work hard and do my best, maybe I could do Papa Lannister.
Gross.
You though? Let me think about it. Well, I know you like the Starks, but I don't think you could be a Stark.
No, who do you think I am?
Just because
I don't like the cold.
you hate it.
I do.
You don't embrace it. Winter is coming are definitely not your words.
No, they're my words. Winter is coming. It's just I tack on a few more. Oh no.
What house would you be in? I gotta think about this. Actually, honestly, maybe something not as well, you kind of got that Baratheon look about you.
Mm-hmm.
You kind of have a Robert vibe.
I'll take that.
Minus the blue eyes, but you don't have a Robert personality.
I could.
For my sake, I hope not. I kind of want to say House Hightower.
So the most obscure. Oh, there you.
Yeah,
Hello.
but House Hightower is located in Old Town, where all the books and the knowledge are.
Okay, that's true.
And they're all about knowledge for knowledge's sake. I gotta think about it. I don't know. I feel like I'm more obvious than you are. You're much more subdued personality than me. I'm like Lannister in your face. That is me. And I'm just gonna accept it. I'm just gonna accept it. I want to be a Targaryen, but I guess it's just not meant to be. I'm a Casterly Rock kind of gal.
We're having a debate right now on what house I would be in if we're talking about A Song of Ice and Fire houses, like the houses of Westeros.
Right? That's what I'm saying. Harry Potter, it's like you take the quiz, you're one of 4, but Westeros, there's literally so many of them. Biggs told me just before we started streaming, he's like, yeah, I know you want to be a Targaryen, but you're totally a Lannister. Oh, so that's that would be that's an added element that I actually really like. They have. Oh yeah. Well, that's terrible. Oh my god.
No, I was like, oh, I forgot to change the graphics for the stream. It still says it's Stephen King's Night Shift. I was like, oh, I'll just put text over it, but the text doesn't do a good job of covering it up.
Not at all. Are you kidding? Oh my god, that's terrible.
Awful.
Hang on 2 seconds.
Oh, thank you. We had to get ready for it. I mean, Oh, nice. Have you gotten your tree set up? Oh no, definitely. We have Ramona, so she's kind of pushing us along. If we waited another week, she may have gone crazy.
Oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, big time.
Oh, 100%. She has been counting down the days until she could count down the days.
Yep. So, on this whole Westeros train, what house do you think Noel would belong to?
Ooh.
Or would he forsake his house and become a maester?
That's a good one. That's a good question. Uh,
Hmm.
uh, I
Well, there's tons of them. The Arryns are the lords of the Vale and wardens of the East. And they have and the sky cells. Oh, the Greyjoys.
Yeah.
There's a lot of toxic masculinity though in the Greyjoy family.
This is true.
Yeah. Oh, she's awesome in the books. She's actually more awesome in the books.
I think it's very appropriate that Martin writes it where the house is just this toxic masculinity encased house. And then the woman is like the most badass character in the house.
Absolutely. What it actually we just read the first Theon chapter and Asha's father describes her as having married an axe for a husband, taken an axe for a husband.
Yeah.
Like that's how badass she is. Right? I don't know though. I just said you were House Hightower, but I also kind of feel like maybe Noelle would be kind of House Hightower.
I think you just have like a thing for Hightower right now.
They're cool, man.
They are. But
I don't know. You guys have a lot of similar qualities, though. Your whole quest for knowledge thing and your love of literature.
yeah.
That's a Hightower thing. But Hightowers are also like, yo, I'm going to try this. I'm going to try this dark magic and just see what happens. Kind of a thing.
I don't know what house I'd be, but I feel like I'd just forsake it and travel across the sea.
Oh my god, maybe you'd just be a sellsword and join the Golden Company.
Yeah.
I could actually see that being you. I could actually see that being you. Screw tradition. I'm gonna go do my own thing across the sea.
Exactly. Go have adventures.
Bravos.
Bravos is awesome.
Oh my god, am I the only true Westerosi in the chat right now?
I think so, man. The first thing I would do is just leave.
Oh! Noelle would be a faceless man!
That would be cool.
And here's me sitting on Casterly Rock, mining for gold. Just saying, if I'm a Lannister, I got one up on all y'all. I got modern sewage. Okay. The most modern
You got me
sewage
there.
in the world.
You got me there. That's true too.
Yes. Just listen to us read it.
Yeah.
Listen,
But
Lannisters always pay their debts. We have tons of gold, and let me just say it, money makes the world go round, and we got all of it.
well, not necessarily if you think about how do you live, where you learn about a lot more
Oh
things.
yeah, we're supposed to talk about that, aren't
Yeah.
we?
And I really want to talk about it
All
because
right, all right,
I'm
all right, all
excited
right.
to discuss.
Let's get started. Let's get started. Okay,
So,
okay.
so first off, how'd you like it, Noel? You like see it through Copper's eyes, which is the eyes of a 15-year-old, and then you have his uncle, who is older and wiser, kind of explaining it to him
And
in a
educated,
more
and
adult way. And oh, it's just so good.
it's very Moby Dick. So like
Yeah.
when the
See,
introduction
I haven't
said that
read
it's
Moby
very
Dick,
Moby
so
Dick. Love Moby Dick. Have you read Moby Dick, Noel? So this so the structure of Moby Dick is the even and odd chapters. So every even chapter and every odd chapter, one set is the actual story, and then the other set are a series of essays about whales and whaling. So you'll get a chapter about Ishmael and what he's doing with Queequeg and what Captain Ahab is up to, and Starbuck, etc. And then the next chapter will be like an essay about whaling techniques and how they've evolved, or
kind of
whale
shining light
species.
onto what they did in the previous chapter, so you kind of understand why or what they're doing. Kind of
Um,
like this, where it tells you the experience, and then the uncle explains like the
Actually,
philosophy or science behind what
the best
Copper is
example I can
experiencing.
come up with is and I can't cite specific chapters just because I don't have Moby Dick in front of me, and I would need to reread it again because it's such a huge book. But there's a chapter where they get a whale and they harvest it and they clean it all up and stuff, and then the skull is just kind of like sitting on the boat, and Ishmael's like looking at the skull and talking about how big it is, and they're just kind of all like looking at it and this and that. And then the next chapter is an essay about how the skulls of different species of whales vary, and how the skull of the sperm whale is different from the skulls of all the other whales because they have the spermaceti organ in their skull.
Okay, so it is kind of like that, where you're
So it does,
experiencing something in the story, and then it explains it further
right.
in detail. Okay, that makes sense. Uh, yeah, I think this does a great job of doing it. And I think the one thing I appreciate is that the uncle doesn't this isn't like a philosophy book. It's not a spiritual book, and it's not a science book. Like, he really brings everything into it. He hits
I think it's all three,
exactly. He brings everything. It's well rounded, and
which
that's
is
what I appreciate about it.
which is kind of why I'm leaning towards that book being our next book.
Oh, okay. Yeah, well,
I didn't say what book.
she, yeah, yeah. We were talking about this because you recommended Night Shift. I recommended this book, so I said, why doesn't Alexis choose the next book?
And the book I have in mind will kind of take what's happening in How Do You Live and like turn it up to 20. I won't. I won't. I won't. I won't say anything. But let's get into this. Me
Yeah.
too. Okay, I'm gonna throw it right out there right immediately. Like I literally have already cried reading this book. Like overwhelmed by the magnitude of what is being discussed in this book.
Mm.
It's very um it's very simplistic in its language, but its themes are so heavy.
Right. It's
Which
written as a
works, I
young
think.
adult novel, but I feel like anyone of any age could read this book and learn something,
For sure.
either about themselves or the world.
Absolutely. And
But
how to be a human.
so I blazed through this the first day I got it. Like the first four chapters I read
I had to
that day.
stop him from keeping I had to stop him from going forward.
Yeah, I was kind of like, we said first four, but what if we just read five? Why not one more? But no, I didn't. So I just gotta look at the chapters real quick. So the first one is a strange experience. So when he, right, it really does. We're talking about society and humans all together, and the imagery of how the city is like breathing. You have this influx of people, and then they come out and in, and how it's almost like a living organism, and the humans or the people and everyone are just these molecules moving around
Or
that
like
make up that organism.
the tides coming in and out. I
Yeah.
think is the metaphor specifically in the text that's used. You have the tides coming in and out, and then um it's almost like the 15-year-old version of like walking the razor's edge. Right. So he's standing on this balcony and he's looking at all the vehicles going by this and that and then he starts thinking about all the people and all the buildings, and it kind of hits him, the extreme multitude that is humanity and the ebb and flow of that, and he comes up with this concept that we're all just molecules in this big ocean of of whatever. And it's kind of like walking that razor's edge of eh, feeling like an individual but also feeling like part of a greater
Well, I
collective
think
and trying to reconcile that concept. And because he's 15, he has a very like base understanding of what that is, and then you get the letter later from his uncle that kind of like explains it further.
Well, the uncle says, it's kind of an experience we all go through. It's that moment when we realize that the world doesn't revolve around us. When he's explaining
Right.
Copper's name from Copernicus, who
Right.
discovered, right? I
I
really like
loved that too. I loved that.
perfect description of how the Earth orbited the sun. The sun didn't orbit the Earth. We weren't the centers of the universe. There's
Right.
that moment where you like realize other people have lives too, and it's not like they just disappear when they're not around you. They're doing things, and the person on the bike just
Yeah.
driving along has no idea that Copper is looking at him or anything like that. Like all these things that are going on that we don't even know about.
I also think that oh, go ahead.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
have you ever heard the concept of um Nirvana being a three-story house? So the idea is that achieving enlightenment is going upstairs through a three-story house. So when you're in the first level, you're experiencing everyday things, right? Feeling, hearing, tasting, pleasure, blah, 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 blah. And then you go to the second story and you realize that there's kind of something more than just earthly pleasures. And you kind of start understanding what spirituality is and what being a person in the world is. And then you go up to the attic. And then once you get up to the attic, you achieve nirvana. And achieving nirvana is living in harmony and with every living thing on the planet and realizing simultaneously that you are one and everything is you and it's all interconnected, right? But you can't live in the attic. You have to come back down sometime to continue to live life. So you can go into the attic and experience that godly, godly for lack of a better word, nirvana enlightenment experience of Siddhartha sitting under the Bodhi tree. And you can feel that, but you can't live your life purely in that. Right. Right. Right.
Yeah.
But that's also like what walking the razor's edge is. Like you have to walk if you are someone who achieves enlightenment and you achieve that kind of understanding, you have to walk the razor's edge. Because if you dip too far one way or the other, you lose enlightenment. But if you stay in enlightenment too long, you'll go crazy. And you'll go bananas trying to reconcile what enlightenment means and the purity of that versus the negatives of everyday life. It'll drive you bananas. So you constantly have to walk the razor's edge. And I feel like this first chapter of this book is Copper's first journey into kind of I like I said, I don't know where the book is going, but this first chapter kind of almost seemed like Copper's journey into, I don't know if it's achieving nirvana essentially, but discovering what it means to live in harmony in the world. And his discovery of this ebb and flow of humanity and everyone being a small part of a whole is like a first step in that journey of being able to live in harmony with everything.
I think it's the it oh, I was gonna say it's just I think it's the first step in really him developing empathy and seeing the world through others' eyes. Like I love how the uncle describes it. Like when you're young, everything is this way or that way from your house. You know, and as you get older, you learn that there's more than just, you know, leaving your house to go here. Like you might have to describe it from different locations. So to
Yeah.
travel somewhere, you realize that your house isn't the center place.
I love the vehicle of Copernicus and Copernicus's discovery to fuel that underlying theme of you need to realize that you're not the center of the world and that to truly be a good person and an empathetic person, you need to think in terms beyond the world revolves around me and I am the sun versus no, I am a piece in a bigger revolving thing. And I'm not going to lie, when we get to the end and we find out that that's Copper's nickname and how proud he is to have that nickname, like that really got me. It really got me. I loved that.
it's like the Yellow Brick Road like unfolding in front of him when he sees the people in the city, you know? He's like, wow, this is the path I want to follow. And another side note, I just love how the uncle is encouraging him. The uncle just seems like a great guy to me. Everyone would need a figure like that in their life, no matter who they are, family or not, to help you out like that.
I think if
I just love,
everyone had a figure like the uncle in their life, they would be so much better off. I we have to get into further chapters before I can expand upon how I feel about Copper's
well,
uncle. But
I just have one quick thing, and then we can get off it. But when you talked about the house with 3 stories with the Nirvana,
yeah,
and you said the attic was Nirvana,
yeah.
my first thought was Jane Eyre with the
Oh
crazy woman locked in the attic.
my god! Noel,
You were just talking about this book earlier.
Noel,
Too.
I am not kidding
I
you.
don't know why I thought that. I was just like, wait, is this crazy woman like?
No, it actually kind
Galaxy
of
brain?
works. It actually kind of works. I kind of think that actually fits. I'm not gonna lie, because
Yeah,
Jane Eyre is literally one of my top 10 favorite novels of all time.
it's incredible. I
And I,
always think about it.
and I literally told Evan earlier, I told him earlier that if I was ever to leave him for any man, they would be fictitious. And one of them would be Mr. Rochester. But like when Jane Eyre makes that discovery, she achieves that, she unlocks that knowledge. It's an enlightenment of sort. And then
Yeah,
she sees it and it's terrifying and she has to leave. So it kind
yeah,
of is.
and it goes hand in hand with what you were saying about if you live in the attic, you go insane. Literally, like if you stay in that enlightened place, you just lose your mind. And I think the secret to like these secrets, it's like we lock them away in our own personal attics. We don't want to think about them too much. It's like a containment of our consciousness for our own benefit. We lock away these truths, and maybe we'll pop our head up in the attic every once in a while.
I
But we,
think
yeah,
I think um that's kind of like the crux of what achieving enlightenment in Buddhism means, is being able to kind of rest easy in between both. That you can go into the attic but then come down to the normal plane and kind of do both and be in it, understand the great enlightenment truths
mm-hmm.
and be able to know those things and then still function in the real world, and being able to kind of straddle both. I think that's kind of what it is. And oh my god, I think I through this conversation I have definitely decided that the book I want to read next is definitely the book we're going to read.
All right.
Let's
To continue on.
I know we're talking about some
Okay.
pretty abstract stuff here.
Yeah.
We're getting
Oh,
on
it's
a
all
tangent.
good. I love it. So what's chapter 2 again? So chapter 2 is the fried tofu incident, if I
Yes.
recall correctly.
A brave friend.
I
So fuck the
loved
tofu.
this. I loved this. This
did
was the
too.
chapter that legit made me cry.
Yeah, I knew it would when
Yeah,
I read it.
I legit cried when I read this chapter.
Yeah, this
Yeah.
was vivid for sure.
Yeah, Urugawa, right?
Urugawa.
Urugawa, being impoverished in this class where it seems like everyone has money.
Yeah, it seems like, well, when
And
this is, we have to bear in mind that this story does take place too in like pre-war Japan.
yeah,
So we have to remember that pre-war Japan, a lot of places are still very isolated. Class is, I mean, not that class isn't still a thing in Japan, but it I think it's more obvious and stands out more pre-war Japan, right? Because you still have so many people limited by transportation, etc., etc.
but that whole classism doesn't really seem to hit Copper in this. Nor does it. Is it Katami? Is it Katami that fights
Yamaguchi.
Yamaguchi.
Kitami fights Yamaguchi.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Kitami. Yeah.
Neither does it seem to hit Katami because he stands up for Uragawa.
He does. We also get a little bit of insight into like the pure joy of childhood with Copper doing the whole baseball game thing.
Yeah.
And
Oh, I
the three
loved that.
the
That
three
was so great.
the three boys just having fun together and just enjoying like simple pleasures of childhood had a very kind of almost Stephen King vibe in that it was able to capture like kind of almost the magic of childhood, and you can understand why all these kids are friends with each other.
Right. And it's been a while, so this is the chapter where he does the radio broadcast, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
And-
I love that.
And then in comes Uragawa, and you see Copper walking down the hall, and then this kid is like, "Yo, we're calling him fried tofu," and blah 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 blah, and like nothing is
First
even
off, I
happening.
just want to say, yeah, real creative guy. Hey, he brings in fried tofu every day. Let's call him fried tofu.
Right, he's clearly a genius.
Genius. Yeah, he's great.
But immediately you already get a sense of Copper's moral compass because just based on this little rumor and this little story, Copper's already uncomfortable and he doesn't want to laugh and he doesn't think it's funny. He's like, actually, this is pretty shitty. Why is this funny? Like, you're creeping on this kid. Like, this isn't cool.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it just reminded me of my own experiences in middle and high school where
Me
I would
too.
I would witness stuff like this. And I mean, I would feel bad, but I would like, what can I do? What can I do? And maybe if I was like, brave, maybe if I had a copper, I would stand up for what was right and stuff. I don't know. I just
Sure.
this chapter really brought to mind. It was just realistic. I thought this was a really realistic chapter.
Right. I think something that is definitely out of the ordinary to the point where it's almost unrealistic. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. Is uh, Uragawa's like total belief that he shouldn't retaliate just
No,
because.
not at all.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go
Just
ahead.
just because these kids pick on him every day doesn't mean he should jeopardize his character by sinking to their level. You know.
I think I think this particular chapter really illustrates a lot of maybe the cultural differences between Japan and the United States. Because when I was reading this and I was reading what happened, number one, what happened, how the teacher reacted, how Copper reacted, and how Uragawa acted, it very much spoke to me as very Japanese in some respects.
But I think Uragawa acted appropriately. I mean, I
Definitely
still.
wonder about different cultural norms. I mean,
There's a
Yeah.
lot of I think there's a lot of that present in this book, and I think to a certain degree reading this book it definitely benefits you having an understanding of Japanese culture, because even with things like the uncle says, like being civic minded and thinking of the greater whole, like Japan in and of itself is much less individually conscious than it is collectively conscious as far as their actions and their attitudes.
certainly compared to America. Yeah,
Right.
definitely. Yeah.
But then when you see Uragawa trying to pull Kitami off of Yamaguchi, that's an incredibly brave act to commit, and it's an incredibly, like the uncle says later, like Uragawa has a big heart and a genuine heart, and he's already forgiven his bully. But there's also this element of not wanting to cause trouble for his sake, not wanting to create a ruckus for his sake. There's the whole saving face element to this. So there are other social components to it. Like for Kitami to go ahead and literally start wailing on Yamaguchi, that's a big deal in a Japanese school. Like that's like kind of like a whoa moment. And the fact that
I don't know. I feel like they got off with less punishment than what would have happened in like high school.
that's the other thing though, because the teacher is willing to listen to what happened. You can hear it in the teacher's language when he's asking Kitami, like, what was it that really made you resort to violence? What was it that really made you decide that violence was the only option? Like the teacher seemed to be willing to really get to the root of what the issue was, because in his mind, no one resorts to violence like that unless they feel like they have no choice. So what was it? Versus in the United States, it's just like, oh, two kids beat each other up, blah, 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 give them detention.
new?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Yeah,
Well, I
pretty
think
much.
Katami was kind of the crux of this chapter for me, and I like how the uncle used his kind of mantra or catchphrase, which I made a note of it just now. No matter what anyone says, that's Katami's catchphrase. Basically, he's like,
Mhm.
no matter what anyone says, I will do this. I will think this. And the uncle says, you need that kind of willpower, Copper, to be your own man, to be your own person. Like, yeah, you can follow ethical. I thought the journal in this chapter was really interesting because he's like, yeah, of course you have to be ethical, you have to be compassionate, but ultimately you have to do what feels right for you no matter what anyone says. Like you have to almost violate those tenets while abiding by them. Kind of like the Razor's Edge thing. You have to do this dance between like what you feel is right and what is right. Like
Mhm.
it's just this I don't know. I just thought Katami really was awesome in this. So.
The thing that, the line that really stood out to me in this chapter, more than any of the other ones, was this. It's just a little passage. I haven't spoken to you about this yet, but 3 days before he passed away, your father called me to his side. He said that he needed to ask me a favor and it had to do with you. Then he related his hopes. I want him to be a great man, a fine example of a human being. I commit these words to paper here in this book for you. You must hold them close and never forget them. I bear them in mind myself and think I will never forget them either. When I write things in this notebook for you to read someday, it's because of those words your father said to me.
Yeah,
And
I like how
that really just hit home for me, big time.
Oh yeah.
The uncle like breaks it down, to be a good man doesn't mean you always follow the rules and do everything that's asked of you. You have to be your own person. You have to make mistakes. You have to try new things that are outside the norm.
And you have to decide for yourself what it means to be a good man. You have to experience those things. Because I love the passage where he talks about how I can tell you that water is made up of 2 parts hydrogen and 1 part oxygen, but I can't tell you what cold water tastes like. You have to taste it for yourself.
Yeah.
That was this chapter he talks about that. I loved how he described that. Like he can teach you all these lessons and stuff, but unless you actually go out there and have the experience, you'll never really understand basically
like
what it is to live,
Yeah,
Right.
it's like the whole thing of knowledge is basically useless unless you apply it. So, like, applied knowledge is the only way you learn, really. Otherwise, it's just all theoretical.
Right, and if you can understand it on paper, that's great. But when you go out into the world and you can't apply it, or you can't at least take in what you're seeing in the real world and then analyze it and think about it and draw conclusions from it, you've learned nothing and you have no ability to contribute to the world.
Should we move on to the next chapter?
Yeah.
Not to get away from this because
No.
we
It's
have a lot
really
of-
hard to just stay in
It
the
is,
lane.
yeah.
There's just so many things to talk about with it.
Yeah, that's
which is
something.
why this book is so cool. Like,
I love this book.
It's a young adult book. It's a very easy read, but it's just so dense.
I also think that I'm just going to throw it out here. I think part of the reason why it's so dense and also why it seems so kind of like Hemingway sparse in its language is because it is a Japanese translation. And so there are certain things in Japanese characters that are just, you can't translate in a word or whatever. So you really kind of have to, I think it makes it difficult, right? So I think that's part of the reason why the language is the way it is, because it's a Japanese translation. So you have one character that translates into like an entire idea.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's part of the reason why it translates the way it does, which is great. I'm not criticizing one way or the other, but I think that's why the language comes out the way it is, just because of the original language. It's Japanese.
Mhm. All right.
Yep.
So next chapter, Newton's apple and powdered milk. And no, this is actually the chapter where the boys get together and they have their radio broadcast.
Oh shoot!
'Cause I
My
thought
bad.
so when I
And
yeah.
I would just say, just on the radio thing, to me, this was where I started like internally welling up, because like it just brought to mind, just as you said before, just raw childhood. I mean, I used to do that. I used to turn down the volume and watch baseball games or soccer games and pretend I was the announcer and
Oh,
entertain
that's awesome.
Oh, I
whoever
did that.
with that. It's classic. I used to mess around with this tape recorder. I would like record myself reading The Hobbit, and I would just like do it over and over. I would just read it over and over and just listen to myself play it back. It was fun. It was just fun. And I would just play it for my friends, and they thought it was fun. And I don't know. This just was total nostalgia wave for me.
I agree. One of the funnest things we used to do was we would turn the volume off on the TV or a show we're watching, and then we would like act the
Be the
voices,
characters.
you know,
Yeah,
and
that's
guess
great.
what they're saying and stuff. We used to do that all the time. It was so great.
Sorry, I gotta pee again.
All right.
You guys go.
Oh man, childhood.
Oh yeah. Oh, yeah, and just the camaraderie between childhood friends. I mean, there's really nothing that beats that.
I know.
And it's almost like as we grow older, we like are yearning for that. Like it's like this crazy high we can never get again. I don't know.
Right? It's almost like we understand too much, or we just don't have the time. Like I remember one of my fondest memories of what I was talking about when we turn off the volume and stuff. We actually did it for Jurassic Park, and we decided we're gonna voice the dinosaurs. You know, so one
That's
of us voiced the T-Rex, then another, you know, and you know, what are they saying? What are they doing? That sort of thing.
We were
It's
just
great.
talking about doing that with Song of Ice and Fire.
Yeah.
So.
That'd be funny. That'd be funny. Like the dragons, what are they saying?
Oh, we want to do a Song of Ice and Fire if it took place in the United States. So every region is a region of the United States. But
okay, cool.
To stay on topic.
Stay on topic. I love this chapter because I think it's something that a lot of people came to realize in the past couple of years, which is just how interconnected we all are. You know, we're talking about how Copper's powdered milk started in Australia and how many people it passed through
In order to end up sitting at his table.
and it like hit home because with recent years and the pandemic and everything shutting down, you know, like a shipping container in Egypt stopped people in the States from getting their new TV or shoes or whatever, you know. I think it was something we've experienced firsthand just recently, and it's like fresh in the world's minds.
I'm not going to jump ahead, but I do think what we establish in chapter 3 with the net human particle connection, or whatever it is that Copper calls it.
Yeah.
So we get this explanation of what it is, how every human being on the planet is interconnected through this economic global community of production. And then I think we expand on that in chapter 4. But I won't get there yet.
I get what
we'll-
you're saying. Yeah, that's a teaser.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
So
teaser.
we'll just stay here. I think
I love how he breaks everything down, like the Newton apple idea.
Oh,
You
I
know,
love that.
Newton
That was by
wasn't
far my favorite part of this. It was just the whole gravity. It's like, well, celestial bodies exert their own gravity and stuff. I mean, I still think this stuff is mind blowing.
Mhm.
It's crazy. It is really crazy.
the thing that I really appreciated about this chapter, and that I think really I felt personally, was when the uncle is talking to Copper about how much work Newton had to do, how much dedication he had to have to continue to work and work and work to prove his idea and continue to go along that path of inquiry and discovery. And then he goes on to talk about fields of study and why they exist and why people still do science and why people are still pushing that envelope. And for me, I just resonated with it because I remember taking like herpetology and mammalogy and all these science courses and having to just read a lot and research a lot and writing papers and doing these things. And sometimes it's a real grind and you don't want to, but you have the end game, the thing at the end that you're working towards.
right, but I think this is more of how you don't always have an end game, but you can arrive at conclusions in the end once you break things down. Newton didn't see the apple fall and was like, I'm going to discover gravity.
But
Yeah,
he
he
had
went-
he had a
yeah,
spark of
defend-
something,
Well,
right?
yeah.
And he had a spark of something and he goes, I'm going to go with this and I'm going to go with this. I'm going to go with it. And he just takes it and takes it and takes it. The
Yeah.
disadvantage from today to Newton is there's so much more knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that passion to keep going,
Yeah.
to get to a point where you can discover something new, I think is what the uncle is talking about. Like that fire in your belly to push.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think
like
he's
that. Yeah. Go
and
on,
I
go
just
on.
really resonated with that because what my whole thing is like big cats, right? And pushing and big cats. So I just really resonated with that message of if you've got this fire in your belly and you've got something and you just got to run with it. You just got to run with it no matter how far it takes you. And he's like telling Copper that Newton ran with it and he just
Yeah.
kept going.
He didn't just sit on his laurels like, oh, apple fall, that's crazy. He was like, whoa, like where he just like one step after another, just one logical step after another, and suddenly he's talking about moons and celestial gravity, and it's like, how did he get that from an apple? And it's because of his passion, really, is what happened.
Right, and he had to create a whole different extension of math just to explain his theories.
Yeah. And the beauty of it is that you can describe the entirety of it in one single law.
Well,
And
that's yeah, totally.
And I
yeah.
think that there is something
Well, it's elegant. It
I'm
really
going
is elegant.
to I'm going to say it and you guys can think what you want to think about it. But I think there is just something poetic and divine about being able to illustrate such a complex scientific concept in a simple law that kind of marries together philosophy, spirituality, and science in this just perfect trinity of this law of science. And if we read the book we're going to read next, we'll get there.
And I think we can, reading this now, we can really see just we can see more of the process that he's talking about, because Newton came up with this and it was like Newton figured it out. He solved everything. And then because this was pre-war Japan, I'm not sure if this was written pre-war Japan or if after. I
I
don't.
think so. I think it
the
was
original.
published in 1937, but I'll look.
But then Einstein comes in and then builds on that and says that Newton was right, but he wasn't totally right. And
1937.
then came up with the theory of general relativity that kind of
The
unified
relativity of
it
time,
all
the
and
relationship of time and gravity, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
Einstein like refined it even more
So-
and cut out some of the loopholes that might have been left in Newton's theories.
So this was published in 1937.
Mm-hmm.
So Newton and then Einstein are a perfect example of what the uncle is talking about, right? In this chapter, the uncle talks about how you continue to make new discoveries, and pursue and push and push. So Newton pushed it, and he developed the law of gravity, right? Which we know now is the law of gravity. And then so many years later, here comes Einstein looking at all of this and taking his own brain and using his own motivation and passion and his wife's. I'm just going to say his wife was hugely instrumental in his research. It just wasn't him by himself.
Well, behind every great man, you know the rest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then he comes up with a theory of relativity, and which is what the uncle is exactly trying to say is to be a great human, one of the things you want to do is to try and come up with something that's completely new, not a derivative of something else or a variant, like to take what has already been learned and go further. And Newton to Einstein are a perfect example of what the uncle is talking about in this chapter, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I think the word genius has been kind of sapped of its true energy, but that is truly genius, really, to triangulate those things and push it to a new level. It's I don't know. The word genius just comes to mind. I mean, I know it's kind of anodyne now, and people are like, genius. Oh,
I
is
don't
that like
know.
the Apple people?
I
And it's like,
think-
no.
I think genius, to go back to what I was saying before, I think people who are true geniuses are individuals who walk the razor's edge
Yeah, yeah, totally.
between totally bananas and brilliant. Because in some ways, I think you have to be a little bit bananas to be able to be so brilliant.
And even Einstein
Like,
was
take
on the
Mozart,
side.
for example.
Go ahead.
Mozart, you can't argue. The man was a genius. The amount of work he produced in such a short volume of time. But
That's what I mean. Yeah.
But he was an alcoholic. He had money problems. He couldn't function in everyday life. But he had this incredible talent.
He had a gift. Yeah. Yeah.
And he could only walk that razor's edge for so long. You know, I think true genius is one of those things that just it's a fine line between madness and genius. And I think there's some truth to that concept.
I think there's a difference between like intelligent people and geniuses, just the same way there is intelligent people and wise people. There are plenty of wise people that aren't very smart, and there are plenty of extremely intelligent people that aren't too wise.
I would agree with
Like
that.
a genius, as
That's
opposed to an intelligent person, an intelligent or smart person is someone who can take in the facts, remember them, and recall them very quickly.
And critically
Examine
utilize them.
all that,
and utilize them. But you know, like I consider myself smart. I can receive facts and I can remember them and recall them. There are a lot of useless facts, but they're still facts.
And you can apply them to different concepts.
A genius is a person who takes the concept and the structure of the concept and applies it to something that is non-existent. Like a smart person can just, okay, 2 + 2 = 4. Therefore, 4 + 2 must equal 6, That's easy enough. But to come up with a whole nother idea of, like, in this case, physics, something that doesn't really exist in the
and then
human
to
mind.
just...
Or I guess, like, right now, the biggest thing in science is quantum physics. And understanding that's kind of our general relativity of this generation.
Whoever cracks that, and it's gonna happen, like that's gonna be their name's gonna be up there with these people.
Oh yeah, like I mean, right now, people are trying to mash together quantum physics and general relativity because it doesn't work. The small and the big don't work.
Oh
But there
man, we
needs to
gotta
be a
watch What the Bleep
connection
Do We Know.
between it, and no one knows what the connection is. There's certain theories like string theory and everything, but nothing's been proven. And the thing is, though, like a lot of the people out there who do this, like these scientists who come up with these crazy theories, usually don't see the reward of the seeds they sowed. Like
Look at Marie
most
Curie.
most of
Yeah,
She's
these
a perfect example.
most of the
Pioneer.
scientists will come up with these ideas and they're too advanced for people to understand. So people just shun it like, no, that's not possible. It's couldn't happen.
But that's
Our understanding of physics doesn't allow this or whatever. And then
Yeah.
10 years down the
Even-
line or 100 years down the line, someone picks it back up like Einstein with Newton's and it's just like, wait, there might be something to this. Or
Right.
the laws of thermodynamics. I'm reading a book right now. I haven't finished yet.
Is
Called
that the Einstein's thingy? What is it?
Einstein's Fridge.
I remember.
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's all about the development of the laws of thermodynamics and stuff. And most of those scientists, like stuff that we know for a fact today, they came up with, and then they were just like kicked out of the scientific community because it was just idiotic.
Crazy.
They didn't want
Yeah.
any of it.
well.
And
Look
then
at
later on, it's like, wait, these people are onto something. Like, yeah.
Well, look at from the artistic or musical perspective, look at Mozart. He died penniless. People really stopped appreciating what he could produce. Look at Vincent van Gogh.
Yeah.
He
Beethoven
everyone
was deaf. Beethoven was deaf at the end of his life. He's
Yeah.
still writing symphonies. Like that's crazy.
But I guess that brings me to
Van Gogh was penniless and had I think Van Gogh is a perfect illustration of kind of like that razor's edge between madness and genius, because Van Gogh was in and out of mental institutions his whole life and had a lot of issues. But look at what he created.
Yeah.
Like
I guess that brings me to my point of that I was gonna say, like what we know now and what we think is like impossible in these series that couldn't work. I mean, 6 generations from now, they might be teaching that stuff in 5th grade.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's very possible.
You know, the idea of string theory or quantum physics.
Well, yeah, I just always think about that. You know, it's like computers used to be the size of an entire room.
Yeah.
And now they're on my watch.
It's on your
Exactly.
phone.
40 years.
And right now they have quantum computers the size of a room.
So there we go. That's just, you know what? That's just how it's going to be, you know? And like now with metaverse, like the whole new metaverse thing going on. And it's like, I don't know if you've read the reports on this, but it's like, it's going to be Ready Player One in real life. They're working on haptic suits and haptic gloves. And
I'm good on that. But let's maybe switch gears and talk about chapter 4, because we do have one more chapter, and I do have a question for you at the end of the stream. It's about Vincent van Gogh. Don't let me forget.
Okay, I'll remind you.
Okay, so we got to talk about chapter 4 because I really enjoyed chapter 4, and the social justice person in me and spirituality person in me really resonated with this chapter. Chapter is
a friend in need. You got a friend in me.
Get out of here with that. I actually don't like that song. I'm not a Randy Newman person. The Randy Newman Disney songs are some of my least favorites. I'm just throwing it out there.
I could go either way with it.
I don't like them.
That's neither here nor there.
I don't like them.
So
Shakira and Zootopia, come on. You can't top that.
Before we get into any
Shakira song, it's called something like Hips Tell the Truth.
Hips don't lie. Oh, you know, my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it, boy. The attraction.
Don't lie. You were a young man the same time I was. You watched that music video on repeat for hours.
I'm on tonight, and my hips don't lie, and I'm starting to feel it, boy. Yeah, but that's not the Zootopia song, okay?
Because her hips did not lie. But anyways, one of the things I want to get out there before we get too deep in philosophical discussion with
Yes, the philosophy of Shakira can wait for another time. Yes.
Yes.
We'll talk about that another time.
the philosophy of
I'm a
telling
big
the
Shakira
truth
fan,
with
just
your
saying.
body.
I'm not into her hips, but I am into her.
Okay,
I
so
res- I-
chapter 4, we learn a lot more about
Urugawa.
Uragawa.
You learn a lot more about him, his whole past, and
His
well, not his whole past,
family.
his family, and his situation, and how his father is, somehow absent at the moment, trying to work out some business deal or something like that. And so it's up to him to pick up the slack. And to me, this chapter was just the realest chapter that we've read yet. I mean, we can talk all day about the dalliances of spirituality and the different paths of philosophy, but at the end of the day, we live in a society, and this is what happens in society,
But I think this is what is the crux of being a truly spiritual being is being non-judgmental and being a vessel of just nothing but love and gratitude, no matter what walk of life you come from.
Oh, definitely. No, I'm not discounting that at all. No, I agree 100%. Yeah.
I loved the little descriptions of, because up until this point we've seen Uragawa as like this sludgy, pudgy kind of, I don't want to say loser, but that's kind of how he's portrayed. The only
No,
thing
he is portrayed as a loser. I mean, other than he's very good at the classic literature, but
which I'm really
I
curious
think
to know more about. That he's really, really on in classic
yeah, I thought they
literature.
were gonna explain it a little bit more in that. That's like a seed they drop in the other chapter, and it's just like it's not explained in this. So I wonder if it's gonna come back later on.
But it's like his clothes are baggy, he's always falling asleep, and yada yada yada. And then you get this chapter, and it's like, oh, it's because he's up before everyone else is helping his mom. And then I love the description of Copper watching him with the chopsticks,
Oh, that was so cool.
like doing the tofu.
And he's like, "You're amazing. Like, how
Mhm.
long did it take for you to learn that?" And Uragawa is just like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
And
I just did it.
for someone like Copper, who is living a fairly good life, right? No economic woes, no issues,
Man hasn't
no
aged.
real issues.
He's
Like
doing
Copper
alright.
has a very good life. He's very lucky, right? And then to go to someone like Uragawa's house and to not feel contempt, but to just be in awe of the skills Uragawa has. Like that really touched me. Like Copper goes there looking at Uragawa making the tofu and being like, "Oh my god, how do you do that?"
yeah, yeah. And I love how genuine Copper is too. Like, he is not preoccupied with, like, he's just taking the moment in purely,
Mhm.
and just. And I think that what's cool also is that Uragawa really isn't in his circle of friends up to this point, but he feels like Copper feels a need to help him, or at least he wants to help him catch up with school, right? Because he's been absent.
Mhm.
So
It's his moral compass like tugging at him like,
yeah,
I'm not going to be okay as myself if I don't reach out and do what I can for this person.
Well, I think this is reflecting the previous chapter where his uncle's talking to him about, you need to have those experiences to be a good person.
This
This is one of those experiences. I
Mhm.
also like how this
God,
chapter really
wow.
complements the previous Uragawa chapter, chapter 2, right?
yeah.
Fried tofu, because in that chapter he is portrayed as this loser and it's rough for him. And then you see this one and he's portrayed as this like strong person taking care of his family. And I think
Yeah.
that it's just perfect yin and yang.
This chapter, the uncle spends a lot of time iterating to Copper that the people who live in poverty and provide via the labor of their bodies should be the most respected people because they give so much and receive so little.
Such a good point. Yeah.
And
Like on
the
point.
the
yeah.
uncle is trying to iterate that the way that our society functions, because I don't think Japan at this time is really all that different from any modern country today,
No, nothing has
where
changed.
the uncle
Except-
says
yeah.
like the majority of humanity labors with their bodies to produce products for other people to consume, and for the most part we treat them like garbage, and we
Yeah.
shouldn't, because those people deserve our utmost respect because they are giving so much.
Again, I feel like this is a very appropriate time to read this book because we're experiencing that again in our society with like the pandemic. You have the what am I what's the word?
It's a total. It's just amplifying this whole dichotomy so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. I could totally put words in your mouth.
Yeah, no, I just had like a brain fart of my my whole thought there of how this it reflects the workers right now working through the pandemic. You know, the required workers.
Mm-hmm.
What? Never mind.
One of the things I really appreciated actually was, I'm just going to read this real quick because for me as a Japan enthusiast, this really hit home. We are grateful for good fortune, specifically because we feel that it rarely happens. Thus the word arigatai has come to refer something special or rare enough to be thankful for. So when we say arigato or thank you in Japanese, it becomes an expression of gratitude. If you survey the whole world and then on top look back at yourself now, you would probably describe your present state as arigatai, wouldn't you? And I just loved that little background information of what arigato really means. Totally. And what it really means is gratitude. Thank you, gratitude. And what is gratitude? Like, in a spiritual sense, gratitude is like the best thing you can give out, is just gratitude. And for me, that linguistic explanation of what arigato really means just kind of gave me that like feeling inside, like, oh, so and I'm sure it's taken for granted all the time, but the actual roots of what arigato is, as arigatai, meaning like a rare event to be thankful for, that it never happens. I think the uncle is trying to say that any time that you have the chance to say thank you, you need to treat it as this is a rare event, even if in the grand scheme of things it really isn't, but you must look at all things in this way and to be equally thankful and show gratitude for everything you have and are given.
Well said. Yeah. And as a word nerd, I loved that little part about that word. It was just very interesting. Arigato, I'd heard that, but I didn't know it meant like a rare event,
Well, arigatai is the rare event, and then you have arigato, which stems from it. But that's like language evolution happening too, which is also very cool.
Mm-hmm. But going back to the gratitude thing, I mean, any sage worth their salt will tell you that gratitude is basically one of the keys to alleviating any mental stress that you have. Like, make a gratitude list, like come up with things you're thankful for, call the people that you love, that type of thing. That's every single time. That is what they prescribe for people who are feeling low. And I just
start with gratitude.
From my own personal experience, and I think a lot of people can attest to that.
Start with gratitude, absolutely. Yeah. And then we also kind of get into the social dynamic of what it means to be poor versus what it means to be wealthy, and the plethora of conversations that could be had about that. but you
So big.
see right here in and of itself, you see Uragawa and his family, who Copper genuinely loves, and they are genuinely lovely people. And then you see people like Yamaguchi, who presumably come from money, who are shallow and contemptuous, and this and this and that. And
Yeah.
the uncle illustrates it in the text, but then you see it through the actions of the characters that being poor doesn't define who you are. It's kind of like the
Totally.
Angela thing we watched.
Yeah, it does.
So
Kinda sounds like that.
we watched this
His
movie.
father even comes home at the end.
So we watched this movie with Ramona the other night. Do you know the book Angela's Ashes?
I've heard of it.
Okay. I saw the movie, I haven't read the book. So anyway, it's about the author of the book kind of licensed the characters. It's a memoir, but he licensed the characters out. Either way, it's about his mom, and she's a little girl in Ireland. She's growing up, and it's Christmas Eve. And they tell the story about the king and the pauper, and they meet a genie. And the genie decides that he's going to grant each one of them a wish. And the king decides that he's going to wish for as much gold as he can possibly have. And then the pauper walks into the corner of the room, and he just closes his eyes and he silently says, I wish, I wish, I wish. But you don't hear what he wishes for.
Okay.
So then years and years later, the king and the pauper cross paths again. And the king is up to his eyeballs in gold. It's in his socks, it's in his crown, it's in his clothes, it's everywhere. But he's miserable, and he sees the pauper. And the pauper is just tootling along, minding his own business, just happy-go-lucky. And the king stops him and he says, yeah, hey, I remember you. You and I met the genie. And the pauper's like, yeah, we did. And the king goes, you're in a very good mood. And the pauper goes, yes, I'm in a great mood. I'm happy. And the king says, why are you so happy? What did you wish for? And the pauper's like, well, that's personal, man. Don't,
Right.
you know.
I can't tell you that. Yeah.
And the king just like bugs him until he says, you know, like, what did you really wish for? Because I wished for all of this and I'm a miserable SOB. And the pauper looks at him and he says, I wish to be happy.
Boom. That's it.
That's it in a nutshell. And I think that's what the uncle tries to say about poverty.
You can't buy happiness. You have to make it.
It's a state of mind. You really have to. It's not easy. You have to train yourself. Really, I mean, to stay in that state. It's like being a yogi or a sage, as I mentioned. It's a practice. It really is a practice.
Yeah.
It's not just like you can't. Like, yeah, you can be spontaneously happy. Like maybe something happens that makes you happy, but when you wake up, you have to be like, you know, it's a all I'm saying is it's a practice. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what the uncle is trying to illustrate is that when you live in poverty, you have literally everything against you. And it's very difficult to maintain that attitude. And yet you see people like Uragawa and his mother who seem to be very proud.
I loved his mother. Loved her description and everything like that. Just thought she was so solid. Like
I really liked her too.
Kind of off topic, but there's a great Hemingway character, Pilar, the woman in For Whom the Bell Tolls. Probably one of my favorite female characters of all time because she was just this stoic badass who just didn't take any shit from anyone.
I have not read that book, so
yeah. Pilar is amazing, and this character reminded me a lot. I was like, wow, that's just like Pilar.
Really? Okay.
But anyway, that's kind of a side thing, but
no, that's cool.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Evan.
I was just gonna say this book is just blowing me away so far.
Me too. It's so good, you guys.
It's so
we haven't even
good.
talked about the fact that Miyazaki is going to make a movie about this.
I
Like,
know.
I know.
Like
and that's just
I-
crazy.
I can see why. Like the whole time I'm reading the book, I'm picturing like all the characters and the scenes in my head in Miyazaki's art style.
It feels
Ghibli's art style.
it feels like something that
Yeah.
only Miyazaki could bring to the screen.
Right? Like
That
when
he would understand the nuances of what needs to come out.
when he's like flipping the tofu and everything, I already picture about how delicious that food is gonna look, because if
Totally.
anything Ghibli does well, it's food.
Well, to me, just the opening chapter with the city. Oh my god! I was just like, he is gonna nail this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just gonna be majestic,
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many
And also-
opportunities to create such crazy art styles. Like, is he gonna really make it look like waves coming in and out?
While
so many different
simultaneously
ways.
making Copper feel so isolated.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Animation, I mean, his commitment to hand-drawn animation is really remarkable, and
That's
I
the
just
thing
think-
that's the thing I like about hand-drawn animation. There's no limit to what you can visualize. And that's the thing I love about animation, and I feel like that's what we miss out on in the United States that other countries seem to have a grasp on.
yeah,
That in the United States we seem to feel like animation is a child's medium, but I don't think it is really. I think it's an artistic medium, and you can really
Yeah.
the sky is the limit with animation. And it's
Yeah.
incredible. And you can tell an incredibly poignant, brilliant, dramatic, violent, whatever story you want with animation.
which Miyazaki has done time after time after time. after time.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's interesting that this is gonna be his swan song. I mean, I guess, but it's not fantasy or supernatural or dealing with fantastical elements at all.
It's definitely
Yeah.
not Spirited Away or Princess Mononoke.
Well, he said he was making the movie for his grandson or his son?
His grandsons.
His grandsons.
Right, as like a gift. He wanted to give it to him as a gift or something like that.
Yeah.
But
Which
Makes complete sense.
makes it so like my heart just wants to go, oh,
I know.
I want to cry over the concept. Now that we've read almost half the book, I just sit here going, oh, I understand why, because Miyazaki is like the uncle wanting to teach his grandsons about how to be a good person through the
Oh my
film.
God, yeah. That's
I
crazy.
actually read an article. I don't remember what it was, but there's within like I think it's within Studio Ghibli, where like the kids can go tour.
Oh,
Correct
cool.
me if I'm wrong. I don't know, but there's a. I might be wrong, and in the comments, by all means, correct me. I'm not assuming to know, but I know that there's some place within. I think it's the studio where you go through the tour, and there's a little bridge over like this little stream, like a little very Japanese wooden bridge,
Mhm.
but it's only big enough for kids to cross. The adults can't go on it. It's just for the little kids.
Challenge accepted.
I was just thinking, like,
Okay,
I want to see what's on the other side.
maybe
just 'cause I'm
Noel.
grown up.
Maybe Noel. But you are 6'3"
Yeah, I got
in
the stats.
Japan. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I could probably like jump across.
Why would it? All right, that's probably true.
But either way, no, I know there is. I don't know if it's a permanent exhibit, but I think I showed you. They opened up like a little
Yeah,
exhibit
yeah, you
in
did. You showed me.
someplace in California, I believe in LA. And there's this section where they have like this whole artistic scene, and it's actually the tunnel to get into Totoro's like house.
Oh, the little
setup,
forest.
and I'm
thing?
pretty sure it's the same concept you talked about. I think it's like really small, so really only children can fit through.
All right.
That's crazy.
Blitz question. What's your favorite Studio Ghibli movie? Go.
Spirited Away.
I'm going for a deep cut. Nausicaa in the Valley of the Wind. That is a dope one.
I haven't seen that.
Katie
so-
really likes that one.
Yeah.
A lot.
That one is I wanted to bring it up actually before that question because the theme of that movie is basically ecological destruction and what we're doing in the face of that, which is to say not much. And
It's kind of like Princess Mononoke.
So can you guys guess
That's
what
a great
my
one, too.
favorite
That's a great
Miyazaki film is?
I actually would like to rewatch Princess Mononoke like very soon because I haven't seen it in a long time and it blew my mind. Like maybe that might be my favorite, but I just haven't seen it in a while.
So
I only watched it once, so. I could
So
definitely
what's
try
your
to see it
favorite?
again.
what do you think
I'm
my
gonna
favorite
guess-
is?
Oh gosh.
The Cat Returns.
I'm the Cat King, the king of cats.
Oh no, wait! I just remembered Kiki's Delivery Service. I love.
Oh yeah,
that
there's a little black cat in that too, right?
Yeah, that one's great though. It's like
Hi,
a little
Bubba.
See,
girl that delivers mail and she flies around with her cat.
all right,
That's all I need.
don't
So,
hate me.
Do you
but
guys?
when I was younger, the first Studio Ghibli film I watched was Kiki's Delivery Service, and I didn't like it.
You were a young boy.
That's
though.
true. I
grower.
really didn't
It's a
watch
grower.
another Studio Ghibli film for a long time after that because it just kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. Like,
I actually felt the same way about Ponyo. That was like I think that was the first Ghibli movie I saw was Ponyo because it like had just come out.
That one's for really younger kids,
Yeah.
though. You can tell.
And
I-
you know I've
Ramona
revised that-
really liked it when she was little.
yeah, I have an affinity
bad.
for it because it was one of Mona's favorite movies when she was a baby.
I
Yeah.
also like the illustrations of the Dunkleostes. They look great.
Mhm.
But so, what's my favorite Ghibli movie?
I already said The Cat Returns.
Do you have a guess?
Well, I'm going with Howl's Moving Castle because when we watched it, we were both sobbing
That's
at the
true.
end.
All three of you, Mona and Noel, everyone.
All right. My favorite Studio Ghibli film to date
Castle in the Sky.
is Princess
sorry.
Mononoke.
Yeah, okay, all right.
See, I knew it was up there. I didn't realize it was your favorite though.
I
mean,
think
it's so epic though. It's like 3 hours, totally epic.
Well,
Yeah,
I
it
think
is.
the thing about Princess Mononoke that really resonates with me, and Noelle, well, you're coming over in a couple of weeks. Maybe we'll plan on watching it because I have it.
Oh, that'd be great.
I
That'd
have
be
it on
great.
DVD. I think the thing that resonates with me about Princess Mononoke is the theme that every action has a consequence, and that even if you think you're doing the right thing, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, and also the man versus nature conflict, the spirit
Yeah.
of the forest, and just the raw animal natural world in jeopardy just really resonates with me as a zoologist.
Mhm. Cool. I like
So-
hearing about these themes because I haven't seen it in a while. Like all I really remember is just how grandiose and just what an epic story. But I'm gonna take your words to heart, and now I'm gonna remember that when we watch it.
All right, so we need to watch Princess Mononoke, and you and I need to sit down and watch What the Bleep Do We Know?
Down, super down.
But before we do that, we need to read. Before we get into the rest of the book, 'Cause
Should we
that's
just
about-
finish?
I think we did all. We
let's
just
see,
covered all 4
it's
chapters.
this-
I think.
it's about the same amount of pages.
It's the same amount of pages to
So,
finish the
yeah.
book, so do you want to just finish it for next time?
Let's finish it. Yeah,
All
let's
right.
do it.
Let's
'Cause,
do it.
I mean, I'll be done by tomorrow afternoon.
Whatever, all right. Evan will be a super achiever. He'll be a serious black about
I'm a
this.
total nerd about this book.
I love it. I
What's
just
the
don't have
plan
the time
for-
you have to read it.
So, I love this too. What a great suggestion, by the way. So awesome. Love this. It's like the
I'm
antidote
absolutely in love with this
to-
book. Yeah.
Oh, me too. It's like reaffirming a lot of things for me, actually.
Same,
so
same.
it's really good, and I can see how Miyazaki wants to adapt it. So yeah, let's close it out, and we'll talk about the last half of it, I guess, next Thursday.
So why don't we finish the book? We'll close it out. And then at the very end, I will announce my pick for the next book to read.
Okay.
And then we'll kind of figure out how many chapters we will want to have read by that time.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, we'll figure out a schedule because we've got the holidays coming up, and I'm sure we'll
I
want to
know.
take a week off for Christmas. and,
yeah, I'm
Yep.
sure we're gonna be busy.
I'm
for
sure.
Christmas and stuff.
It's going to be difficult, Christmas, New Year's, Ramona's birthday, etc.
Mhm. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out.
All right.
We will.
So, before we part, or should we
Van
part
Gogh.
now? Van Gogh. Or should we talk about that offline?
We can end it here. 'Cause
Let's end it
unless you're-
here.
Unless you're referring.
Nope.
Okay.
Let's end it here.
All right.
Okay.
And we will see you all next Thursday.
See you then.
Okay. Hope everyone enjoyed the discussion.